In this video, we'll be looking at what it's like to fly economy class on Asiana. My first flight will be aboard an Airbus A350-9 on over to Seoul. It's a little bit over 6 hours. And then my second flight will be onwards from Seoul over to Sendai, Japan. And that flight will also be an economy class aboard an Airbus A330. But the thing is, I booked these flights kind of last minute, and when I booked them, a lot of the seats were already unfortunately booked up, meaning I wasn't able to get any nice window seat for the first flight, which is probably okay since it does happen to be a night flight. But then on the second flight, there will be 232 seating and I will have a window seat. So with any luck, we're going to get a good encompassing look at what it's like to fly Asiana in their economy class. But before we see what the onboard product is like, let's go back a little bit in time to right when I arrived at this airport and see what the airport lounge is like over here. The only Star Alliance lounge in this airport is the Singapore Airlines lounges, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You can also use our SATS.
Would you recommend that one or the Singapore? Singapore, yeah. Okay.
Okay, but you didn't change it for me.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. And now there is another lounge I could access, but I'm going for the Singapore lounge because even the agent checking me in said that the Singapore lounge is way better than the other third-party lounge that Asiana uses here. So if the agent tells you it's better, it's definitely better. And here we are at the Krisflyer Gold Lounge. And I've actually never been to this Singapore lounge, but I know from the other lounges they do it right.
Hi.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Alright, let me just scan your boarding pass.
Thank you. But keep in mind here that I'm flying economy class. Now, you do get lounge access flying economy class if you have Star Alliance Gold at Singapore Changi Airport. But you don't get the best lounge access. And I kind of forgot about that until I walked into what is the Silver Kris Gold Lounge, which is a big step down from the real Silver Kris Lounge. Basically, Singapore Airlines is not a big fan of giving Star Alliance Gold members that fly economy the full Singapore Airlines experience, but rather they give you access to like a very, very small shower room and then a very limited amount of food and drinks and stuff like that. It just really doesn't compare to the main lounge, and it is a bit of a shame, but it's still a better lounge than you find in much of the world, so I mean, definitely can't complain here. When it comes to dining in the Singapore Gold Lounge, they do have their signature laksa. That's always pretty good. And they've got enough various hot foods available to make a meal. This is what you get if you've got Star Alliance Gold and you're flying economy class. On the other hand, if you are flying business class, you can get access to a much better lounge. And since I had a little time on my hands, I did decide to just pop over into the lounge next door. We can take a look really quick. There's some food options here, but it's definitely less than in that Singapore Gold Lounge right next door, so I'm just popping over and now I'm gonna leave. But if you only had access to this lounge for whatever reason, it does have showers as well. I mean, it looks kind of nice. It's just very small, and they actually have the capacity is full sign right out front, and they're only accepting passengers with Star Alliance Gold or that are actually flying business or first class, so y'all. The only thing that might be better in that lounge looks to be the coffee, but I'm not even going to try it because it's too packed. There's no seats available. They only let me in because they had to, and they even advised that I go over to this Gold Lounge, which I've already been at. But now that we have taken a good look at the lounge, let's go head over to the gate because it's almost boarding time. And I made it through security pretty quick over here, like less than 5 minutes. There was a tiny bit of a line. And that's usually the case at Changi Airport, to be honest, because they have kind of individual security screening for each gate, or at least for a few gates at once. Unlike at the majority of airports in the world where you go through like one big security line and then after that you have, I don't know, all this stuff, shops, lounges, and all that kind of stuff. Over here at Changi, that's just not the case. But it's looking like my flight will be right on time. You can see on the monitor behind me, it's a 10:50 p.m. departure, so it's going to be a night flight. And in a fun and interesting change of events, I'm now going to be reviewing the worst seat on this airplane, the middle seat. See, the thing is, when I booked these flights, there were actually no seats available next to each other. Like, there's only seats, one aisle seat, so aisles across from each other. But I just walked up to the gate and I asked, hey, by any chance, do you have a middle and a window seat available? And they're like, yeah, we have one. And since I'm at a good mood, I'm going to be giving my wife the window seat and taking the middle seat. That's a sacrifice right there. Oh, that's the wrong boarding pass, my fault.
Another one, please.
Yeah, this one. Thank you.
That way, please. On the right.
안녕하세요.
We are being delayed because of our
Oh.
interruption, page loading for departure. We will depart as soon as we can. We expect about a few minutes. We apologize for this inconvenience. Thank you for your understanding. We will update you soon.
I'm not sure what's happening, but the boarding process was actually very, very smooth. Very similar to what I've experienced on ANA and JAL, so Japanese airlines. This is a Korean airline, and I think their level of service is very similar. But I am already kind of encountering one issue with this flight. Like, you would usually think that during a delay, if the in-flight entertainment wasn't already turned on, they would turn it on for you. But actually, we're just sitting here now, a few minutes after the delay was announced, and they still haven't turned on their IFE, or in-flight entertainment. Perhaps there's a reason that I'm missing that they haven't turned it on, but it is kind of, I guess, inconsiderate of everybody sitting here waiting without necessarily having something to do, especially if they're expected to just watch a movie on the flight. So it seems that I'm just going to have no choice but to explore the very intellectual in-flight reading they have, Asiana Duty Free. In this magazine, you're able to buy overpriced liqueurs that you wouldn't have bought. Korean red ginseng extract, which is actually a really nice product, but again, it's very overpriced. Or even some Party Smart soft chews. But they have just dimmed the cabin lights, so I'm really hoping that means we're going to take off now. Let's see. And it looks like our short delay has come to an end, and we're just about to push back now. So one thing I find kind of interesting about this seat that I just probably wouldn't have chosen otherwise is that it's right next to the bathroom. But there is one positive to that. The fact that I can recline without bothering anybody behind me.
We hope you enjoy your flight with Asiana Airlines. Thank you.
And we just started our pushback, which is kind of interesting here because the plane was parked super, super close to the wall of the actual terminal building, which you don't usually get to see when you're pushing back. And they already played the safety announcement video, which was one of the weirdest that I've ever seen. It kind of just felt like they forgot to put the music in it or something.
We'd like to familiarize you with the emergency equipment and emergency evacuation of this aircraft.
I guess it could just be a little bit hard for the average person to actually pay attention to that video, but whatever. I have already noticed one other small issue though on board here. These headphones are dirt cheap because you have to put these little foam things on yourself, and actually when I was trying to put the foam thing on, one of them just broke already. Like, it's somewhere over here on the ground. I don't think I'm going to find it until we land, if ever. And on top of that, there's not like any amenity kits or anything, and this is borderline long haul, I guess medium haul flight. So some airlines are giving out amenity kits on flights like this. And I'm not just talking about business class or premium class either. Like an economy class, just like this, it could be nice to have at least like a little eye mask and maybe, I don't know, some chapstick or something. They don't have any of that. But of course, the good news in terms of the headphones is that the fact that I was trying them out did mean that they finally turned on the in-flight entertainment right before takeoff. So let's get up in there and then we'll take a look at what onboard service is like. I hope they have a decent meal because I'm kind of hungry. So very shortly after takeoff, there was an overly long pitch to try and get people to buy duty-free products. But the in-flight entertainment did turn out to be pretty solid. You've got a decent selection of movies, TV shows, and even games. Plus, an interactive flight map is always a nice touch. Asiana also does have Wi-Fi in economy class, but it is not free. And now somewhere between like 30 and 40 minutes into the flight, we've reached altitude, and service has just started as well. I can see the flight attendants coming around with meals, and actually, people that have ordered special meals already seem to have gotten their meals. Flush. And if you just heard that flush, and another flush, that's the downside to these seats in row 27. They're sitting right next to the bathroom. But then again, is that downside not outweighed by the fact that you can recline way back? I mean, I don't know. For me, I think it's really nice that I can recline. And honestly, after thousands of flights in economy class, I've just stopped reclining if there's anybody behind me because it's not a nice thing to do. People do continue to do it, and at least the people sitting in front of me are pretty kind about it. They put their seats back before the meal has come, and they are reclining still. But it would be really cool to see at least the full-service airlines like Asiana actually deal with the issue that is reclining. Or maybe they just don't see it as an issue. I don't know. What do you think? But that's the least of my worries right now, because I think I smell bulgogi, and if there's going to be Korean food on this plane, then this flight's going to be a winner for me.
Fried seafood rice or Korean style bibimbap, two choice. Water.
Thank you. There is kimchi involved here. So I am really excited to eat this food in economy class because I have never had Korean food in economy class. But it was a bad guess. It was not bulgogi, it's bibimbap. And this is nice. They give you a little broth with some small dried shrimp and I don't know what else is in here, some seaweed. And it's tasty. And I am really just impressed by the dining experience that they're offering in economy class today. Like, first off, there is real silverware. 5-star airline, they're going to have real silverware in all the classes. That's kind of normal. But on top of that, there's a refreshing towel. The food is actually good so far. You get some sesame oil, and without asking, there is hot sauce. I guess they have a little bit of a head start ahead of most other airlines just because Korean cuisine is so freaking good. And not only do they have Korean cuisine on board in the lowest class that tastes good, but they give you directions if you don't know how to eat bibimbap on how to eat bibimbap. That's a cool touch. Plus there's a little bit of information just about what bibimbap is. You just put the hot sauce, the sesame oil in there, all the stuff in there, and eat it. It's just like a big concoction of goodness. Until now, I would probably say that Qatar Airways had the best economy class food that I've ever eaten on a plane. But this is probably the best thing I've ever eaten in economy class on an airplane. All that said though, I am highly biased because I'm a huge fan of Korean food and I've been eating it basically since I was a kid.
지금까지 배운 스트레칭 같이 해볼까요?
And although the plane was pretty much sparkling clean when I boarded, when I came back here to the restroom about 5 hours after boarding, it wasn't so clean. And this restroom is the one that I'm leaning next to. Right behind this wall is where my seat is, by the way. And the restrooms in the middle are a little bit less spacious, so I thought I'd just give this more spacious one a try. For a wide-body aircraft, it's still a little bit not that spacious, but it definitely does the job. It feels pretty modern, pretty much like the rest of the airplane interior on this A350-9. And it's not really the dirtiest restroom that I've ever seen, but it doesn't seem like they're taking that much care to pass through here often and clean much at all. But we have already begun our descent down to Incheon, and I was actually able to get a little bit of sleep on this flight, which is pretty rare for me in economy class. Usually it's just not worth the time. But actually, that seat right in front of the restroom really allowed me to lay out, and it was almost halfway lie flat. Let's say it like that. And they're about to put that seatbelt sign on, so I'm gonna head back and let's see what it's like over in Incheon Airport today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Seoul Incheon International Airport. Please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is off.
Thank you. 감사합니다. And we are just a few minutes delayed, but I think it's going to be fine, and I'll have plenty of time to go to a lounge. And I just remembered on my flight over here that there is a real Singapore Airlines lounge. You don't have to access a worse gold lounge over here because there's only one Singapore Airlines lounge, and my ticket should get me in there. So let's go check that one out. Transfers seem to be pretty easy over here at Incheon Airport. Basically down that way, there is the Asiana lounge, but there's the Singapore lounge over here, so I think I'm gonna start off and maybe only go to the Singapore lounge. We'll just see how much time I have. I've been to other Singapore lounges outside of Singapore, and they've always been really amazing. So yeah, that gold lounge was a little bit of a disappointment when you compare it to any other Singapore lounge. I mean, it was still probably better than most of the ones you find in the US though, regardless of which lounge we're talking about. But here we are, the real Singapore lounge. But I'm urgently in need of a coffee. But instead of a machine, there's a barista here. Can you do like a flat white?
Flat white?
Yeah, 2 flat whites, please.
flat white?
Thank you. Coffee made by a human being, not a machine. That's the kind of lounge that I like to arrive to at 6:30 in the morning. We'll find it's 7 now. And darn, that's a really good coffee. This tastes like from a specialty coffee shop. Nice crockery here too. So it looks like, I actually do have some time in the lounge here today. 7:30, and my next flight is at 9:35. But this is just a quick coffee, and I think I'm probably ready for breakfast, even after that bibimbap, just like 4 hours ago. So let's go get some food. They also have some kind of AI K-beauty experience zone, which freaks me out, to be honest. I don't know what to do with this. What would you do with this? Like each one does something different then as well, or?
Actually, if you want to try, if you have a pore or something like that.
Okay, red mode, blue mode, pink mode. It's similar to massage or something? Or not really?
No, it doesn't like massage. This one does, but this one is more like a LED.
Okay, I never tried it. Okay.
Yeah, me either.
Okay.
If you want to try, you can
Maybe I'll see. I don't have too much time. Maybe later.
Yeah, okay.
I'm kind of scared of it though, to be honest. Cool. Thank you for telling me about it. And there's some pretty interesting foods in this lounge. A lot of Korean food, including kimchi pancakes. And this egg thing with surimi that I don't know how to pronounce the name of. But I've had it once before and it's very good. There's dragon fruit and lox, of course. Because what would a lounge be without dragon fruit and lox next to each other? And that's a pretty significant breakfast, especially in an airport lounge. Oh, lox. Their lox is really tasty. And some rice balls. There's just a lot of variety for breakfast available over here. And it's only like a little bit after 7 a.m. So I'm very happy with my start to the day, even if I didn't sleep that much last night. And we will go over what I paid for these flights at the end of this video. But to be honest, if I didn't have Star Alliance Gold status, I definitely wouldn't have booked these flights because having lounge access here and in Singapore Airport, even if it wasn't the greatest lounge over in Singapore, made a huge difference. It's basically the difference between roaming around the airport super tired during a layover or just heading over here and having, I don't know, a flat white that's already paid for by your status. But again, if you wanted to have the same experience that I'm having and enjoy it, you'd have to like Korean food at least a little bit. So for sure on Asiana's like long haul flights between the US and South Korea, they're gonna have some Western options. But on this shorter flight, it was basically like a Korean style seafood dish or bibimbap, another Korean dish with beef in it. So if you are a really picky eater and Korean food's not in the cards for you, which is unfortunate, then you definitely want to pre-order your meal. But I did see that they offer that. You just have to do it, I think, at least 24 hours before your flight. And this really is a nice airport lounge. The only downside is that it's kind of small, and when the morning rush hits, it gets a little bit busy. So I've heard the Asiana lounge over down the way is just a little bit bigger. Let's go check that out. Oh yeah, and on my way out, I realized I forgot to stop in this part. Well, there's a few different options actually. There's like Singapore boiled eggs, some different Korean dishes, and there's absolutely nobody sitting in here. People seem to maybe ignore this one. I don't know. Maybe it's just like that today. But it's kind of cool, and it's a bit cozier than the rest of the lounge, to be honest. So, I'm gonna go check out the Asiana lounge still, but I would definitely come back to this part of the lounge. And I believe it's 4 different Asiana lounges in this airport. So there's a lot of selection. From what I could gather with reviews, this seems to be the best one, but there's a lot of options. Oh, hello there. How are you today? And this lounge, in comparison to the Singapore lounge, is amazingly spacious. And by the way, there are shower facilities over here. I don't know if I actually have a chance to go in there just because I don't need to take a shower right now. Took one like 6 hours ago. That's good enough for me. And this lounge also does have a bar area, though it looks like there's no barista on site, sadly. So you got to make your own coffee with the machine. Unless there's somebody working over at this area. Let's check that out. And I do think I'll just put my stuff down here. A lot of cozy seating here. This lounge is just infinitely bigger than that Singapore lounge over there. And you have basically views of the same runway, but in a different direction. And it's one of the 2 national carriers of Korea. I thought they'd probably have a lot of Korean food here, but that doesn't seem to be really the case. But there's a very similar coffee machine to the one over in the SQ lounge, so I'll try out their coffee here as well. Doesn't smell like good coffee though, we'll see. It would be nice if they had the barista like over in the SQ lounge. That would really make this lounge a bit better, I think. And what seems to be a really popular big draw in this lounge is all of this ramen, 4 different types of ramen. Ramen's popular in Korea, that's cool. But it would be maybe nice to see a few more fresh Korean food dishes. Maybe they have that closer to lunchtime. I don't know what they do here in this lounge. It's my first time in here. So to really sum the Star Alliance lounge situation up, if you want nice dining, go over to the Singapore lounge. And if you want a lot of space, head over here to the Asiana lounge. Or go eat in the Singapore lounge and then come over to the Asiana lounge and hang out here. Thank you. But my flight will be boarding in 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna start walking over to my gate right now. And it's gonna be gate 26 for my flight today. I can see the planes also parked right there. Got an Airbus 330 today, and I'm very happy about that because it means 232 seating, and my wife and I will actually be able to sit together without having anybody else next to us. And it looks like the flight is actually already boarding early. Thanks.
Okay, ladies, ticket please.
Of course, thanks. Let's scratch that. I was actually 2 minutes late to boarding without even realizing it. So they start things right on time, at least when the aircraft's ready, which it is. And while the A330 seating is definitely more preferable to a couple traveling, I'm interested to see if this much older aircraft feels as nice as the A350 did. Because other than the fact that they had 333 seating and I wasn't able to get in the one row that has 232, it was a pretty modern, nice seat to sit in basically. And the cabin, it looked good, it felt good. And this A330 is going to be much older, so let's see. Hello. Cups of Hamada. And there's our aircraft over there, just going to the final boarding gate. And even though this isn't the largest of wide bodies, they do have first class, business class boarding and a separate jet bridge. So I'll be going through the economy class one, of course. And it's all very smooth, very cozy over here at Incheon Airport. In fact, I'd almost go as far as to say that I enjoy this airport quite a bit more than Changi Airport over in Singapore. Hello. Hi, how are you today? Thank you. Oh, look at that. Easy. Quick. But remember how I said this aircraft is really old? It's really old. And that boarding process was super smooth, super fast. And I don't know, you just aren't going to see anything like boarding on flights to or from Japan anywhere else in the world. It's a beautiful thing. And we started pushing back exactly at our departure time, 9:35, so it seems like everything's going to be more or less on time. And pretty much right after I boarded, the flight attendant did come around and hand me the customs declaration that I need to enter Japan, as well as the general entry document. And on top of that, they did have some nice little Asiana pins, which is not always the case on airlines. I mean, I would say less and less people are traveling with pins these days. So although there is the digital option in Japan, I didn't take care of it beforehand, and I'm happy they had a pin, basically. And when I was saying this aircraft is old, I'm not joking in the least, but it's quite maintained. I mean, this looks almost like, I don't know, some old Amtrak train car or something, like a relic. But the thing is, it's quite clean, and everything seems to still be working. Of course, there's no absolutes on this, but if this aircraft were like anywhere else in the world besides flying between South Korea and Japan, I feel like it wouldn't be as well maintained. But okay, I could be wrong. But obvious downsides are that there's no way to like charge any devices here. There's no charging under the seats or anything like that. There's just this very, very old screen, which is nearly an antique, but why not? And the seat is actually quite comfortable. But it looks like we'll start heading on over to our final runway soon. And the weather's not exactly clear over here today, but I think we'll have some cool takeoff and landing views. Plus, you know, I got the window seat for once. But from our first red-eye flight, it's already clear that Asiana offers, or can at least offer, very nice service on board, and a pretty good hard product too. So the real question at hand here is, are all their flights like that? Well, we'll be in the air in a few minutes and then we'll find out. And it looks like we're about over here to our final runway. It's looking pretty clear. Actually not that busy over here in Incheon this morning. So I think we're going to be in the air in just a second. And here's the final runway. We're about to take off. And one thing that's really noticeable about this A330 is that it's so much louder than the A350. You can just hear the engines going. They're just older. I don't know. They didn't have the same technology back then. And this flight route that we're using to take off is pretty interesting because right now we're flying like, I would say 15 miles maximum away from the North Korean border, the DMZ area. So that's just over there. Sometimes flying is just a really funny thing. You could be somewhere in the world where there's a huge population of people nearby that are completely isolated from you and you just can't even communicate with them, just because, I mean, Americans aren't even allowed to go to North Korea right now. And yeah, North Koreans, obviously, the only way they're getting out of there, if they can manage to do it alive, is by escaping. So that's just all over there. So yeah, this is a very comfy old aircraft. It's kind of interesting to fly on. But the realities in the air can just sometimes be, well, I don't know. Sometimes that just hits you in the heart when you're flying near something like that. But this is definitely a smooth ride so far. So I think we'll be at altitude like 10 to 15 minutes. And then we can see what service is like on board. Our service actually just started insanely fast, like 2 minutes after I filmed that last clip, to be honest. We're still not at altitude, but they've come around and like given half the aircraft food already. And now, even though last time I thought they were giving out bulgogi, it ended up being bibimbap. This time it's actually bulgogi. And in addition, they serve you a nice little, looks like a potato salad with surimi, imitation crab in there. Oh, some mineral water. And a little package that's got hot sauce in it. So it's really nice to see that they're serving a full meal for a pretty short flight. But let's check out this food. First off, there's this salad. That's good. It's got surimi in it. And, you know, I like anything with surimi. Just don't ever watch a video about how surimi or imitation crab is made. Please don't do it. And if this hot sauce with the food, I just can't not try it, even though I know this is the same hot sauce that they had on the last flight. Korean hot sauce. It's unique. It's kind of got this... I don't even know how to explain this flavor. If you've ever had kimchi, though, I think it's the same pepper that makes kimchi taste the way it does. So to eat the bulgogi, it's pretty much the same thing as with the other Korean dish, bibimbap. You just mix it all up. And then you put it in your mouth. That's really basically it. That's spicy without the hot sauce. Wow. And considering how spicy and flavorful this food is, I'll just repeat myself on one thing. If you're flying Asiana, and you're not a big fan of like super spicy food, or trying out Korean food on board for the first time, or whatever, make sure that you pre-order a meal, because otherwise you're just not going to be eating anything. But wow, the service on this flight is really nice. I don't know what else to say. The flight is just a little bit less full than that first flight, and the flight attendants maybe feel slightly more attentive, but both had really great service. And the meal they served was also quite good. So I finished that in like 10 minutes, and now we're just cruising at 39,000 feet, and we've got about an hour and 10 minutes left on the flight. The only real downside I've encountered is that I can't really get the in-flight entertainment system to do anything besides show me the flight map. But honestly, that's kind of okay, because I probably would just be watching the flight map anyway for this flight. If I were in this seat for a much longer flight, though, then it would be a little bit of a downside. And honestly, I'm not sure if I just can't figure out how to get the movie to play or if it doesn't actually work. But regardless, this is a really, really old in-flight entertainment system, and to even do anything with it, you do have to use a remote control. So I'd probably say if you see that your flight is on one of these aircraft, make sure to have something to do for the flight. So, the bathroom aboard an A330. It's relatively clean, definitely cleaner than the one in the A350-9. But then again, this flight's only been airborne for like a little less than 1 hour, so less time to get dirty, I guess. It seems like they've got the same lotion over here, but there's no combs or any of whatever else stuff. I think there's probably toothbrushes before on that other flight as well. No amenities besides lotion, basically. But for being such an old bathroom, it's kind of cozy. I don't know. It's not the biggest of all wide-body airplane bathrooms. Definitely not. It's not that spacious at all. But even though it's definitely smaller than the bathroom we had over in the A350-9, it feels more comfortable for some reason. I can't really 100% say why, but it just feels vintage, I guess. And I'd say so far, that's basically the story of this A330 flight experience. To be honest, I'm enjoying this just a little bit more than the A350-9. Now, of course, having just 2 seats instead of 3 with the neighbor does help me and my wife, but there's just a little bit more to it. Sometimes an older aircraft can still be cozy, and for me that's the case here. Plus the service is really on point and feels a little bit more personal than the first flight. So let's head on back to my seat and talk about how much I paid for these flights. So for both of these flights, in total I paid right around $233 US. After having booked these flights around 1 week before travel, I'm pretty happy with the deal I got. There was one other flight on this route available that was slightly cheaper on China Eastern, but it would have been a very, very long wait in China, and both of those flights happened to be flown on narrow-body aircraft as well, so when I saw that Asiana was only charging a few dollars more, I was sold. And honestly, based on the experiences I've had both in the lounges and in flight, I would definitely fly Asiana again if there were a similar deal available. Of course, it's always nice to try out business class products up front, but I think this economy class product already offers a pretty strong experience, and the fact that you can really enhance your experience on the ground by accessing the lounges makes it pretty solid. If you ever happen to be flying Star Alliance from Singapore, though, I would just keep in mind that the Star Alliance Gold Lounge is not really like a regular Singapore lounge. But I do think I might reconsider if we're talking about flying on Asiana's Trans-Pacific routes that are like 12 and 14 hours long. They do have some different aircraft types that they fly on those routes, sometimes like A380s and 747s. But even this slightly more comfortable older A380 seat, I don't think would do me very well after about 8 hours. And those newer A350-9 seats that I was sitting in the last flight also weren't that comfortable by the end of the flight, to be honest. But being in the middle seat, it was also a bit hard to get up and stretch my legs, so that usually makes a really big difference when I do that every couple of hours. And as comfy as I do find these old seats, I mean, they're kind of like sitting on your grandmother's couch or something. It seems like they just keep going back on their own all the time, because the flight attendant has now come by 4 separate times telling me to put my seat back up. But the thing is, I haven't reclined my seat at all, ever during this flight. So it just kind of goes back a little bit, I guess. She comes and clicks this button, and then, I don't know. The people in front of me, however, had reclined quite a lot. And these seats have some serious recline that takes away most of your leg room, unfortunately, if you're not reclining yourself. And again, I feel like almost any economy flight review is just going to have to address the annoying reality of reclining seats. But it is what it is. This is economy class, and more than anything, it's the key to getting to your next destination. But it's really hard to fault any single airline for reclining seats, but sometimes you can't fault them for how they deal with them. So put simply, I might have encountered some downsides, but I would definitely fly Asiana again. That said, after years of waiting, a merger between Asiana and their competitor Korean Air has been approved, meaning in the near future, Asiana and Korean will become one airline. So with that in mind, I went ahead and tested out Korean Air for you too, so definitely give that video a watch after this one. And it's our final descent. Konnichiwa, Japan. Japan. I couldn't imagine anywhere else I'd rather be. Thanks so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, do make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for many more travel videos. I'll see y'all in the next video.